You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. We have tropical activity in two parts of the world today. Typhoon Molave, Philippine Name Quinta, has just made landfall in the northern Philippine islands, southern Luzon, after just passing Catanduanes just a moment ago, or half an hour ago, now moving inland briefly. Also, we have Tropical Storm Zeta in the Atlantic. That remarkable spree of storms continues in that basin. But our main topic, especially because it's pertinent to those in the Philippines right now and time zones and such, evening hours there, we'll be covering mostly Malawi in this stream, and we'll be able to take all of your questions on it as well. My name is Nathan Foy. I'm joined by our team in this hour, consisting of Farhan and Thomas Schwent. Good morning and evening to you both.
Good evening, Nathan, and good evening to you all watching.
So this one has strengthened very quickly in the last 24 hours from just about only forming, and now it's a typhoon making landfall around about 80 mile per hour winds, 140 kilometers, not quite 120 kilometers per hour. Sustained, and very high rainfall amounts in this because it's blowing up a lot of convection just there. I got some reports earlier, some satellite estimates even, that it was producing maybe 70 millimeters per hour in the center.
So that's the concern for the Philippines. So what do we have any precipitation totals at this point that are estimated?
I'm not sure at this point, but if anyone does have anything for us, because I think some people are sometimes more clued up than we are when it comes to Pegasus readings and all that. We can't be on top of everything, but we'll see what they say. But 70 millimeters per hour, potentially near the center of the storm, and that's moving overland right now. Let's just take a look at the warnings here. You can see signal 3. Wind signals out there for the easternmost part of Luzon and Catanduanes there. Signal 2 warnings extending towards the west there as far as Batangas and on Mindoro. Signal 1 extending on either side as well. Of course, Metro Manila also under Signal 1 at this time. So that's what we're looking at right now, this storm moving inland. It's actually expected to intensify when it moves out over the South China Sea. I think it was Ike who made the cone earlier today on our output and went with a high-end Category 1 peak. Do you think it could get stronger than that?
Possible that the storm gets stronger than that. I think that there is more than one indication that it could. GFS yesterday was showing strengthening all the way up until landfall in Vietnam, and I'm just checking the H-WRF now. It shows a high-end Category 2 at 110 miles per hour in less than 2 days' time as it emerges off the Philippines. Like, literally within a day of emerging off the Philippines, it's a high-end Category 2, according to the H-WRF. And then it begins to struggle and weaken as it does approach Vietnam, which is definitely good news. And I know that Strat in particular yesterday was really talking about how those conditions are going to be worsening for the storm as it does approach Vietnam. But still, yeah, it could definitely get stronger than the high-end Category 1 peak that Ike's put it at, but I think that that's a good call for now, as we don't exactly know if the storm's going to manage to rapidly intensify after coming off the coast of the Philippines.
We're just going to swap rooms here because we're still in the old room right now. That's just a message to our team. But there it is once again on the latest satellite imagery, and an eye has sort of appeared in those frames just as it was making landfall. And I believe, is it still correct that the JTWC hasn't gone with the typhoon status yet?
No, they
70
have
miles
not.
per hour
And
right
that's
now.
Crazy.
It is. We nearly called it last night. There's microwave was looking excellent on it. We did see a little bit of an eye that looked like it was making its way to coming out, but overall, ultimately, we didn't go with that one, 70 miles an hour. But yeah, I'd say for sure at this point, there are no questions, at least in my opinion, that this is a typhoon.
And the question there, whether has Sordell dissipated? It sort of is in the process of doing a weak tropical storm, maybe even a depression now. You can just about see it on the left-hand side of your screen, about to move ashore in central Vietnam. But what we're seeing, I believe, is the start, or even the middle portion, really, of a train of cyclones that are moving through. You can already see where that next one's going to develop, some disturbed weather south of Guam.
perhaps this is what most people have been waiting for in the Western Pacific. This season has been mostly quiet, and now it's probably finally getting its act together.
Unfortunately, in this kind of pattern, oh, I think we've got some feedback there from Ike, who's just joined us. But in this climatological pattern, you can often see, once there's one typhoon that moves through, you can get a succession of them. And models suggesting that there could be a couple or even three more significant typhoons in the next couple of weeks that sort of take the same track.
Follow the leader, I guess. Just one after the other. One storm goes there, and then the next follows, and the next, and the next.
All right, let's see if we can talk to Ike. Are you there? Or perhaps not?
Yes, I
Oh.
am here. I'm currently preparing for going out.
Can you just remind everyone where you are, and especially in relation to the storm?
Okay, I am in Bay Laguna, which is about south of Metro Manila.
hmm And I don't know if we can speak to Paul as well. You're also there.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening to everyone.
Evening to you. And you're in Cebu.
Yes, I am in Cebu right now, and we're currently experiencing light rains with occasional gust of wind. So far everything is looking good right now, but
Yep.
probably in northern parts of Visayas and southern parts of the zone, maybe they're getting battered by the storm right now.
You're out of the warnings, actually. There's no warnings at all
Yes,
there.
yes.
But is there still... I mean, is there always a potential for flash flooding on the outskirts of these storms as well still? Do you think?
For sure, on
Yes,
the outer bands.
And just also to give a mention that we are simulcasting this stream on our Force 13 Philippines Facebook group tonight, and Paul's part of that, and Ike as well. So there's plenty of updates going out on there too, and I'm sure our team is taking questions on there as well. But here we are, that's the latest on Malawi, Philippine Name Quinta. We'll come back to it shortly, but in the Atlantic, we've got a tropical storm Zeta, and a hurricane watch is in effect now for the northern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico. That's the 8 a.m. advisory that's just come in. They're saying 40 miles per hour still. It's stationary, movement north at 0 miles per hour. You don't see that often. And expected to become a hurricane at this point into the Gulf of Mexico, and potentially another one for Louisiana, Thomas.
The train of storms does not stop. Mark Suddeth was just saying a couple days ago he thought that the Northern Gulf Coast season was over. I completely agreed with him. I thought that Delta was really going to be our last big Gulf of Mexico threat. It appears that we are wrong, and it looks as if Zeta here is going to be defying expectations. So As the storm moves northward, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a threat for the Gulf Coast. I'm expecting a tropical storm landfall at this point, as wind shear is going to pick up significantly as the storm makes its turn to the northeast.
But
So
what
I'm
about the
not expecting
Yucatan?
a hurricane landfall. For the Yucatan, I think it could become a hurricane before hitting the Yucatan. I know the H-Warp had it at a mid-range to high Category 1 when it hit the Yucatan last I looked at it. So, I mean, it could definitely be stronger than anticipated by then. It depends on when that low-level and mid-level center stack. Last night we thought it did it. It looks like it has not. Looks like it's still displaced a little bit, but it looks like these centers are in the process of stacking. I mean, the storm's under an upper-level anticyclone, and it's virtually stationary with big convective bursts. I mean, it's not going to be that hard to tug that low-level center right into that mid-level center and suddenly have a rapidly intensifying storm.
But there it is for the time being. Tropical storm Zeta stalling, and to be honest with you, Thomas, there on the latest imagery, slight southward movement.
Perhaps the convection's definitely moving that way, and I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that you can see the mid-level center moving that way as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say that if I were going to say it was anything but stationary, I'd probably say south at 1 or maybe 2 miles per hour if I was being generous. But yeah, it looks like there could be a little bit of southward movement. The convection is definitely on the southern side of things.
So that's the morning update on Zeta, and I imagine, Thomas, you'll be looking at that closely and will break in with any Zeta news?
Yes, if there is any big Zeta news, trust me, I will be letting you know.
Back to the imagery. This is, once we get it up and running properly, the rapid scan imagery of Typhoon Molave, and you can see where it is now moving inland. It's over southern Luzon. It's moving quite quickly, actually. It's only been a few hours. When did it make landfall again? The first landfall?
About 2 hours ago, give or take.
So in 2 hours, it's already traversed around a quarter of Luzon at
Yep.
this point.
Speedy boy, Molave.
Moving quickly, and that's for the best considering the enormous amount of rainfall that will be occurring in those brighter colours, which is where the highest cloud tops are. Still could be seeing maybe 70 millimeters of rainfall per hour. So those are areas throughout, well, mainly the signal 3 zones, but also extending towards the west, eventually towards Marinduque, and then on to northern Mindoro as well. Let's see if we've got any questions. Please send them in. Start your message with Force13 all in text on our YouTube chat. On Facebook, hopefully our team is over there. I'm not sure whether they are or not, but Paul will be watching that, I imagine, as well.
Yeah.
So.
Actually, Pag-asa has made an official announcement that the storm has landfalled at 6:10 p.m. Philippine time.
At what location?
There have been different reported locations as to where it has landfalled, but we'll
that the
see to
first
it that yes, the first
That was the
landfall.
first
I'll
one.
just take a look.
Let's take some questions then, since a few are coming in now. What do we think will be the last storm of the 2020 Pacific typhoon season? Well, I think we could get another 6 or 7 at a push.
Yeah, we still have a while to go on that.
Where is Epsilon? Another question that we've received there. Well, let's just pop back to the Atlantic, and there's the wide Atlantic shot, and actually Epsilon is off shot there, so I can't show you Epsilon as it happens, but Epsilon is up there towards the Canadian Maritimes and is going to turn post-tropical very soon.
Yeah, that it will. It's blazing up north there, and it's going to become a very deep post-tropical cyclone, sub 930 millibars possible with it. So it's going to have a very expansive wind field, and there were some model runs showing it. Nathan, giving you a direct hit at some point, but it looks
wonderful.
like it's going to be moving north. Looks like Iceland is in the bigger threat for some pretty strong winds from this at this point. We'll see, though. It's definitely something I'll be monitoring the progress of. It's one of the most interesting storms I've seen in a long time for that region.
So many hurricanes.
So many
Okay,
storms.
so I just checked the official page of Pag-asa, And correction, it's not actually 6:10 p.m. It's actually 6:50 p.m. Philippine time over Malinaw, Albay.
Mm-hmm. That makes
Yes, that's the
sense.
first time. Yeah.
And still a
But they
westward
actually
movement.
stated, yeah, they actually stated the second landfall, so I'll take a look. Oh, okay, there. Yeah, I was right. 6:10 p.m. at
Oh,
Miguel Island, Tabaco City, Albay. Yeah, I didn't see that, sorry.
there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
We're on
Oh,
track now. All right, more questions. Quite a few actually. Do we think that Zeta could become a major hurricane? I appreciate that we're covering two topics at once here, so we'll try and slip between them both at the same time. There's Zeta once again, expected to become a hurricane. Thoughts on it becoming a major?
It's not out of the
mm,
question for Zeta to do it. I don't think it's going to. There's not one
oh,
dynamical intensity model that says it's going to happen. Ships last night was being awfully aggressive with its statistical forecast, showing a 1 in 3 chance of a major. Haven't looked at that yet this morning, but I think that there's a decent chance of a major, especially if those centers do get stacked. I think by tonight, if those centers are stacked, we have a very good chance of at least a significant Category 2 plus hurricane occurring. But if those centers aren't stacked, I think that the odds of a major are going to go down significantly.
Interesting. Ike is out there on the ground. What are you doing, Ike?
currently exploring
There's
our
a lot of dogs out there in
subdivision.
the background.
Currently, I have seen no damages at all. Only fallen
We're
leaves.
seeing a black
Yeah,
screen. Where are you?
It's awfully dark over there, Ike.
yeah, it's awfully dark. Very creepy indeed.
Okay. Well, the dogs seem to be having a fun time. I'm not sure. But there you have it. More questions than just now. Quite a few came in. Do we think that this Westpac season could be just like 2006?
2006. That's an interesting
Possibly not.
comparison.
Oh God, it's raining.
A few late storms that year. Will there be more typhoons hitting the Philippines? Probably.
I mean, those OHC ocean heat content numbers in the Philippine Sea is off the wall bonkers. So,
Yes.
could there be more for the Philippines? I'd say yes, although there's nothing too certain at this point. But the possibility is there with those ocean heat content
There we
values.
go. It wasn't working properly. We've now got your feed, Ike. So he's there somewhere. In any case, more questions there as well. Any chance that we get to Theta in the Atlantic? Quite possible.
Like,
I mean, only
It's
two names to
possible.
go.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Could a repeat of Delta or Zeta occur in 7 to 10 days? Now, there was a model run that was suggesting that there could be another development in the Caribbean Sea that could go on to affect Hispaniola
right
next
now,
week.
I'm looking at the GFS ensembles actually, and I mean, yeah, it would look like the Caribbean itself. There's a area of interest that I know we've marked in the Central Atlantic right now, and that's going to be moving into the Western Caribbean, the Eastern Western Caribbean over the next few days. I think we gave that a 20% chance of development last I checked, but it's moving. It's going to be moving into the Caribbean, and GEFS ensembles definitely show a fair chance of development as we head into the long range. So definitely something to watch for sure.
Alright, sounds interesting. Do we think Pegasa will raise a signal 2 in Metro Manila and its surrounding areas? Paul, what do you think?
Yes.
Yeah?
Actually, yes. Yeah, 100%. Unless if the storm weakens, yeah, otherwise, yes.
Alright. Can Malawi head to Hong Kong?
But you'd have to turn basically straight north for that. So no,
Yeah, it
no,
doesn't
I
look
don't
like
see it happening.
Looking for more questions there as well. What are our predictions for the ENSO region from 2020 through to winter 2021? Well, get your crystal balls out, I think. it looks like we could be entering a significant La Nina event that, if it does continue that way, it would persist at least till the middle of next year. At the earliest, I would say.
I agree.
So odds are it'll be a La Nina event into next summer at least. Is 99W a huge threat for the Philippines? Now, I've not been keeping track of these invest designations. I'm guessing 99W is the one behind Molave.
It is the one that's... Yeah, it's that area of disturbed weather behind Molave.
Yeah, and it's looking pretty good already, even today. We're not expecting development for maybe a couple of days at least, but that one will sort of move northwest, and then it will sink back down towards the Philippines eventually, and looks like it's going to make landfall there. Models have backed off its intensity, though. At least the GFS only calling for a weak depression or weak storm next week, but that does mean that it could sink further south than expected. And then behind that, the week after maybe, there's the potential for another, maybe a much stronger typhoon, long range, says all kinds of things, doesn't it? But you never know, and you wouldn't be surprised at this time of year if we did get a strong typhoon in the Philippine Sea.
It
Definitely
could
not.
happen. So, we'll just have to see.
A lot of questions about predictions and storms and when will Eta form and things like that. Hey, it could be next week.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Will the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season get a Category 5? That's the only thing missing on 2020's tick box.
I want to say no, but I know that if I do, it's gonna manage to happen.
God.
Never say never.
So
That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm not gonna say a definitive no, despite the fact that the odds that it actually happens are quite low at this point. I'd say it's very unlikely, but I'm not gonna say it's impossible, because as soon as I do, it's gonna happen.
What are your predictions for Epsilon's intensity once it combines with a huge low pressure system over the North Sea/Atlantic Ocean? Yeah, so on the forecast, it's expected to move over the northern Atlantic, do a few loops and expand and merge with another low pressure system. Enormous it will be, and very low pressure. We're expecting it to get maybe down to the 930s, maybe even lower. Some long range models a few days ago wanted 910s. There was one outsider model, Thomas, that at one point said 890s.
I believe that was a European ensemble that did that.
I don't remember, but crazy. But it looks like it'll be, and don't forget, way up there in those latitudes, you're talking 50, 60 degrees north. Wind speeds, pressures do not always translate to high wind speeds. So you hear about Dorian being a 910 millibar, 185 mile an hour Category 5. If this system got to 910 up there, wind speeds would probably only be around 90 or 100 miles per hour, which is still strong, but in comparison, much, much weaker.
Sure.
More questions. Will this storm make landfall in Vietnam just like Ophel, Sordell, and Linfa? It looks like it.
Yes, it will be another one for the absolute month from hell from Vietnam, with just storm after storm producing lots of rain. The disaster over there has been awful.
Yes.
At least 100 death has been confirmed with, but I think it's safe to assume there are many, many more people who have died. But there is not that many information at present.
Not good. Any thoughts on this year's Eastern Pacific hurricane season? Well, before you all jump in on that, let's take a little look at it. There it is, looking quite typical for this year so far. Dead, in a word.
It's a pretty sad season. That's if you compare it to years like 2018 or 2015, it's pretty sad. But we have gotten three Category 4s, and they're all pretty good looking. So I'd say it's not that bad, but
We've got
that's
as
just
far
me.
as N.
Yeah, because first N, we're not as set as say 2010 or something.
Which had a Category 5, by the way.
Yeah, but that is it as far as notable things about it.
Will Malawi pass Batangas or Mindoro? Yes, it's probably going to go right in between the two. Or maybe one or the other. It's going to go very close to that area in any case. So that's where it will be in about 12 to 24 hours. Will, what's that question there? Will we have a Category 5 in the Western Pacific in November or December? I think that question is saying. Definitely can't be ruled out.
Very likely.
And why are many tropical cyclones headed towards Vietnam this year?
A lot of it has
Well,
to do with the fact that we're constantly getting these massive high pressure systems getting shoved into China and Japan, and they're shoving these storms southward. They're not being given really an inch. They're not moving northward all that much at all because of that. So you're not
That's a
getting
really
those
good
points of
point.
weakness
The,
for the storm to move northward. And I don't know why exactly there are so many more high pressure systems than normal this year, without these points of weakness where these storms can get away and move north. But it's really something. I mean,
I
look
know
at
it's
this
been a crazy
latest.
year, Thomas, but I've forgotten half of these West Pacific storms, and I can't remember a single one. There must be a few. I can't remember a single one that's actually recurved.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously had like High Shan and those storms that went into South Korea, but we haven't had many storms that have recurved. I mean, look at the latest trends with this area of interest 99W. I mean, if you take a look at the latest GFS, you're going to see the high pressure system is so strong, it shoves the storm southward
Are you able to show
in
us?
the Philippines. Yeah, I can do that. The GFS has been trending away
Whilst we wait for
from
that,
this.
here's a view from Ike's place now. Ike, anything to report?
Very windy, getting very strong,
How strong would you
and
reckon?
about 20 to 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, up to maybe 60 kilometers per hour there.
Yeah.
So that's the view from Laguna. More questions here. What was Malawi's peak intensity? Well, I still think it's yet to come. We gave it 80 miles per hour, pressure 978 when we went on air, and that's the highest we've given it so far. A rather interesting thought. When's the next time we'll see an Atlantic hurricane season as active as 2020 again?
I mean,
Really?
this is the current projected peak of the AMO Plus era. So this could be the most wacky season ever as far as recorded.
Until
But
2021
who
anyway.
knows?
Thomas, go ahead.
Maybe.
So this is the latest GFS run, and you can see here Molave and Sawdell. But I want you to pay attention to these closed isobars back here. This wave of energy. So GFS has it significantly weaker than it has in the past, but you can very clearly see a low pressure system. And you can see it moving northward there. Watch what happens here. This high pressure system comes roaring in. It's huge. The storm takes a dive southward into the Philippines and continues that dive southward into the South China Sea before becoming a significant typhoon. I mean, how often do you see that?
That is, well, yeah, the first part of it is the strangest part. That the rest of it is the typical late season track. But we're not really that late in the season just yet. It's more like a kind of thing you'd see in December, maybe.
I want to show this run because it has a significantly stronger storm, so you can see much better that southward movement.
It's definitely
it's
there.
That's just something you don't see every day, and it's a result of these high pressure systems, these persistent high pressure systems. I mean, you have a high that's basically dominating a vast majority of the Western Pacific here. So I mean, that's something that you don't see often. I mean, you have 1,029 millibars over here, 1,041 millibars there in Russia. Like, I mean, it's just this huge connected high pressure system. Uh, and I mean, it's just a level of organization and scale that I haven't seen in a long time.
And maybe a tiny area of interest over there in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, it would appear that that's a possibility later range, but you can see there towards the end of the run that doesn't really turn into much, at least in this run in particular.
Let's see if we've got some more questions. Someone asking if they should evacuate because they live in Vietnam. Well, that depends on where. Vietnam is a very long country, and the storm will only strike one area of it.
Well, if you're in a flood-prone region, going up is a good idea. Away from rivers or ditches or water places that could easily flood, because given how much rain Vietnam has been getting, it doesn't take that much to flood it anymore. It's been that much.
It's absolutely insane for Vietnam. They've gotten storm after storm after storm, and it's like, my goodness, when is this train gonna stop for them? Because it's absolutely brutal right now.
More questions here. Do you think we'll get a Paloma or Lenny now that it's approaching November? Hey, we could. No, we
The
really,
Legend of Wrong Whale Henry.
we really could, because there have been some wacky long-range model projections recently suggesting that either something forms in the Central Caribbean and moves northeast into Haiti, or very long-range ensembles had quite some solutions. Indeed, one long... this isn't going to happen, trust me, but one ultra-long-range ensemble last week had a storm that developed in early November near the Lesser Antilles and then moved east so far that it struck Cape Verde.
Wow.
That
Oh,
really,
that just-
really, really shouldn't happen.
That will basically be the cherry on top of the cake
Ah.
of this absolutely wacky season.
Gosh.
Yes, wow.
Let's see what else we've got here. When will something in the southern hemisphere form? It's been trying a few
Hopefully
times.
soon.
Well, the
Hopefully
South Atlantic
soon.
of all places has the best chance right now.
Yes, it does. We've got a 40% down there.
We do. It's I don't like that.
It's not good. We might be live again shortly to do that.
I will say that could be weird, to say the least.
And we don't have imagery of that just for this stream at least, so unfortunately we can't show you.
Excuse me, Nathan. Pag-asa has released their 8 p.m. bulletin already, so there have been more places here, more provinces that have been added to signal number 3.
Go right ahead.
And then, yes, and on top of that, there have been received reports that Bicol region, some parts of Bicol region specifically, have lost their power due to the typhoon.
Yep.
Maybe I'll show you the...
Could you tell us which
Yeah.
areas have had their warnings changed?
Okay, so Bicol region, mainly, there's still TCWS signal number 3, but Marinduque, Occidental Mindoro and Oriental Mindoro, northern parts of it, has been added. Also southern parts of Batangas and Laguna.
Let's see if we can just update this graphic to show you how that has changed once I find the right button. There we have it. That's the latest warning graphic. So a large swathe of orange now for the signal 3 for most of southern Luzon, really. You can pretty much make out the track of the storm through all that. But interestingly, Manila and areas around are still at signal 1. And that includes Ike.
I hope Ike is staying safe right there.
And
I'm
there again
pretty
is the
safe.
view from
Ow.
Ike's place there. What was that?
Oh no.
So there you have it, and let's just see what intensity they're running with now. They are saying, Pegasa, they're saying 130 kilometers per hour sustained winds gusting to 180. So it's made 2 landfalls at this point.
Very typical of the Philippines, I suppose, making many, many landfalls.
Yes.
As it went through the country, just many, many, many landfalls.
Naturally.
Of course, of course.
When you got so many islands like that, it's
Paul, are there any questions on our Facebook stream?
I'm actually watching right now, and there was one question, but it's already answered in the stream.
Well, on our stream or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the same question was asked here in our YouTube stream.
Well,
So,
yeah, that's fair. We just want to make sure that we're on top of all of our questions and answers here.
Yeah, I'm also watching the stream here on Facebook, keeping track of the comments. Maybe there were questions and there were none.
Yeah, and this is going to happen a lot in the future now that we've sorted out our simulcasting structure. On our Force 13 Philippines Facebook page, just type in facebook.com/F13F13PH. You can take a look at the live stream and all the updates from our Philippines team, who are covering everything over there throughout the year. We just pop in every time there's a typhoon in the vicinity, and do all the updates here on YouTube as well, as we do with all of the tropical cyclones around the world. So a reminder of what's going on right now. This is Typhoon Molave, Philippine Name Quinta, moving towards the west, moved inland over Luzon not so long ago, and it will be straddling the southern coast of the island as it continues towards the west. Signal 3 warnings in effect for that whole area. Go ahead.
Okay, there has been a question in the Facebook stream, and the question is, could that incoming new storm that will strike Western Visayas, will there be a storm that will strike Western Visayas?
It's possible, but we're not fully sure just yet, but it's possible that could happen late this week. What was I going to say next? We're just going to talk about Zeta again, actually. There's the latest if you've just woken up there on the US East Coast or the Gulf Coast, or indeed on the coast of Mexico or Cuba. Tropical storm warning in effect for the westernmost tip of Cuba, and a hurricane watch now in effect for the northern Yucatan. The same area that was affected by Delta could get another hurricane impact, Thomas.
That is quite unfortunate, to say the least, that we do have another Western Caribbean storm that's in basically 30+ degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures, with the only thing stopping it being itself for the next 2 days. As it does head towards the Yucatan, the National Hurricane Center is anticipating that those centers will stack on top of each other here sooner rather than later, and they are predicting a steady intensification all the way up until landfall in the Yucatan. The worst thing, at least in my opinion, is that rapid intensification of the storm is certainly possible as soon as those centers do stack, and we could see a Category 2 hit, that's definitely a possibility. As for the United States coast, I think a tropical storm landfall is the most reasonable prediction right now, as wind shear is going to be skyrocketing as the storm does make its shift eastward, but it's not a good situation that it looks like the Yucatan's going to be getting a double whammy here in the month of October.
All right, more questions that will continue to rattle on out during this. I think we'll just be here for the hour for commentary for the time being. There'll be plenty more updates on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page. Could Molave re-intensify in the open sea of southern Luzon? I don't know whether they mean within the Philippines or out in the South China Sea. It could definitely intensify in the South China Sea.
It's probably within the Philippines and the gap.
It's happened
in the map.
before. It's happened before, but it's not that common.
Well, in a year as wacky as this, the only thing you could say is never say never.
All right, I guess. I dread to
That's
think.
fair.
What is the National Hurricane Center running with for Zeta Peak?
She's running with 75 miles per hour last I checked. Let me double check that real quick. Um, and they are running with an 80 mile per hour peak right now.
Will there be any typhoons impacting Taiwan in 2020? Well, the chances for storms impacting up there, that area, it's about to expire, really.
Definitely not high.
When you get to November, December, you're really looking towards the Philippines, South China Sea, Guam, Marianas, Micronesia. Taiwan sort of gets ruled out around that time.
They've been dodging typhoons for quite a while now. When was the last time a big typhoon hit Taiwan, actually? 2018? 20? I can't really remember right now. But it's been a while.
I mean, we
I
had
know.
Lakima. Did Lakima hit Taiwan? Or it was at least close. I know it was a close call.
Yes, it was close.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a direct hit, a direct landfall.
Last I recall, a direct hit was Napartak, a big one, but it could certainly be later than that.
Ooh.
Oh, I don't know anymore. We're so frazzled after 28 tropical cyclones in the Atlantic this year, which is still beating the Western Pacific, which usually dominates the whole world for tropical cyclone activity. This is the 21st tropical cyclone in the Western Pacific this year. The average is 27 storms in a year in the Western Pacific. The average for the Atlantic is 12. And here we are with the Atlantic on storm number 27 and the West Pacific on storm number 20. Or is it 18?
And unless the West Pacific had a sudden big boom of storm in November and December, this will be the third season ever that the Atlantic has more activity than the Western Pacific, the other two being 2005 and 2010.
Here's a question. Why has the North Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea been so inactive compared to last year? Well, you pretty much just said it. You're comparing it to last year, which was one of the, if not the most active season there. It's a very normal activity in the Indian Ocean to get, say, sometimes just one storm in the April-May period, and then maybe one or two in October-November.
Well, I don't think many Indians really want another cyclone right now. After the East Coast get Amphan, which is, I think, self-explanatory, and then the West Coast get Nisarga, which, although was much weaker, was still a significant storm that did a significant amount of damage over there.
Yeah, so do we want to give another mention as to impacts on land right now from Typhoon Molave? Still high amounts of rainfall towards the center of the storm. You could see winds up to, well, sustained up to 130 kilometers per hour, gusting to 180 or more. Paul, could you tell us which areas are right in the middle of it all right now?
Oh, so let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so let's see. Right now, as of Pag-asa's update, it's actually just right above Albay still. According to the public chat, it was mentioned in the news that the storm has actually passed right above Mayon Volcano's crater, and then Pag-asa the other day has advised a lahar warning that may happen. So that explains much about it. But right now, I'm scanning through Pag-asa, the public chat, the Earthshaker page. There are no updates as of now. I'll just inform you later.
Yeah, I mean, we're just watching it, I suppose, at this point, as it continues. It's still moving pretty quickly towards the west, and it would appear, this is the only imagery I can get up at this time, the eastern side has a lot more convection than the western side, from what I can see here. So that might suggest that the trailing edge of the storm could be the stronger side, or at least the wetter side.
It's for sure. I mean, we're talking about Molave, right? And I
Mhm.
mean that because you can see that clearly there on satellite. Yeah, so it looks like the eastern side's definitely going to be the wetter side at this point. Hopefully, what it also means when you have significantly more convection now on one side over the other is that it's lopsided. Its core has been significantly disrupted by the Philippines. And hopefully, what that means is that we won't have a storm that's quite as strong as we were expecting coming off the coast.
Let's try and get another look on this storm. I'm just trying to get a new imagery up infrared so that we'll be able to see another view of the storm's structure a little bit better. Trying to get to that might take a little bit of time here, but I'm getting to it. The problem is I have to sort out imagery and edit imagery literally as we're streaming. So sometimes that can take a little while. Here we go. I believe we've got it. There's the infrared imagery now. And you can see there the eastern side really blew up, very high cloud tops, well into the -70s, maybe -80s there. The western side does look a bit bare. You can again see where the eye would be, or is, at least at the middle levels. That could well be moving over that peninsula, which, pardon me on the geography there, I don't know the name of. Quezon, and then on to Marinduque.
But looks like, yeah, I mean, this is definitely a lopsided system, and that western side is waning significantly, which is good news. Hopefully, this is a tropical storm coming out of here, and we don't see anything much stronger than the minimal typhoon in the South China Sea.
Oh, I don't know.
We'll
Slightly
see.
pessimistic on that.
I am too, but that's the hope.
Yes. Let's see if we've got more questions. How far behind the average is the Western Pacific? Well, let me just check the statistics for this date in the year, because that's the best way to compare it. And we are 4 storms behind the average for this time of year. Year to date. Which, you know, it's not as quiet as people might have you believe, I suppose.
It's not in the
Will the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season animation be 20 minutes long, seeing how active the Atlantic is? No idea. We'll have to find out together. So, just a reminder that Typhoon Molave, Philippine Name Quinta, made landfall twice in the last 3 hours. It is now, as you can quite clearly see, moving through southern Luzon. And also in the Atlantic, we have Tropical Storm Zeta with hurricane watches for the coast of Mexico, the Yucatan. Signal 3 warnings for large parts of the Bicol region in southern Luzon as well. There it is once again, the map showing that orange swathe of Signal 3 warnings. And on the right hand side, the JMA track map showing where the storm's expected to go in the next 5 days. They expect a landfall in Vietnam. Let me just double check that that's day 4. 28th. That's day 3. In 3 days' time. So that's another potentially damaging storm for the Vietnamese coast as well. Let's go back to Ike's webcam. There you can see it once again. You can quite clearly see rain falling there. I don't think we saw that so much earlier. I imagine he's getting phases of rainfall right now. And still fairly mild winds, but at times you can see it getting gusty.
The strongest side of the storm isn't supposed to reach him in about 2 or 3 hours, so it's not exactly significant as of present.
No, but there we are. Do we think another Category 5 will form in the Western Pacific? Sooner or later it will.
Very
Yeah, it's a
possible.
matter of time.
Yeah.
Let's say they were referring to by the end of the year. Do we think that could happen?
Yes. And there's,
Alright.
I mean, the 2010s had an uncanny phase of December Category 5s. 2012, 2013, 2014. 2015 had Milor, which wasn't quite a Category 5, but it was still a bad storm for the Philippines. 2016 had Knock 10.
Christmas Typhoon.
Yep,
Christmas Typhoon.
and I guess that's where it ended, really, that train of December super typhoons.
So I guess it can't be ruled out. What do you think the odds are that something like that were to happen this year?
It's certainly a concern, especially if it's at a lower latitude. I mean, even on the long-range models right now, the latest GFS wants the third storm, or is it, well, it's got this storm, and then it's another storm behind it, 99W. The one behind that, GFS wants to be pressure in the 940s, or 930s actually, on approach to Luzon.
Definitely something we have to watch for sure.
Could we see another Christmas typhoon? There's always that unfortunate possibility. Be pretty bad luck if it happened that way, but can never be too sure. Will 2015 be the weirdest season of the Western Pacific Basin? Is another question we've received. Well, I've done a lot of Western Pacific history in recent years, and I can tell you that there's some awfully strange things that happened in olden times. For instance, in 1908, I think it was, or 1912, somewhere around there, 10 typhoon landfalls in the Philippines from September to December in 1 year.
Jeez Louise.
I know.
Oh,
10.
wow. That's a lot.
Crazy.
Wow.
Are we going to do live coverage about Zeta today? I believe we'll have another live tropical weather bulletin tonight, like we did last night.
Yeah, that does look to be the case.
So definitely stay tuned for that one. But yeah, definitely the Philippines is, in my opinion, a cyclone hotspot of the world. Statistically, it is. The coast just off the eastern coast, the sea off the eastern coast of Luzon, is statistically the area that gets the most storms in the world. So that's why it's very important to be prepared for these storms when they come through.
Although, the unfortunate thing is, because they get so home, there are occasions where complacency take hold, and the result when that happens could be very deadly. We've seen that several times in 1991 when Tropical Storm Thelma come ashore. A huge flash flooding in the city of Ormoc, which is it in Luzon or is it in Leyte? I couldn't remember right now.
It's high
But the
as
effect was
later.
devastating. And then of course there are season typhoon. Oh, okay, thank you for that. There are also other storms that are more recent, such as the aforementioned Noctan, Haiyan. That's the most obvious one that comes to mind, I think. But basically, yes, just because if you're in the Philippines or any other area that are frequented by storm, do not ever get complacent, because if you get complacent, you think that it's gonna be fine. It will probably be extremely bad. So just let your go.
We're losing your signal there, but we got the message. Regarding Epsilon, a lot of questions all of a sudden about whether its impacts for Europe, France or Norway or the UK? There's a question there about that. Regarding Epsilon, it's likely to become a very serious or very large, strong exotropical cyclone in the North Atlantic. Latest model trends suggest that it's going to go to Iceland.
Okay, there has been actually a question here in the YouTube stream on the whereabouts of the typhoon, and according to the 8 p.m. live bulletin of Pag-asa, the typhoon is in the vicinity of Malinao, Albay, and will continue to move westward over Albay, Camarines Sur area. And Nathan,
Definitely.
there has also been a question in the Facebook stream. What do you think about Invest 99W, Nathan?
Yes, well, we've mentioned it a couple of times already. It's the one there that's passing by Guam, or will do pretty soon. And this system should become a tropical cyclone. How strong is coming into doubt, because initially we're thinking it might be a strong one. Now it looks like it might be a weaker one in the shadow of Molave. But in any case, Philippines, watch out for that system as well, particularly in the Visayas. There could be flooding rains, even if it's just a weak tropical cyclone, as we've seen from several examples in recent years. So watch out for that one. That's something to look for mid next week, towards the end of next week, this week.
Okay, so there is another question. Will it hit Camarines Norte? So it won't directly hit, but the wind would affect the area. As of now, Camarines Norte is under signal number 3.
There could be typhoon force gusts there.
Yeah. Since it's in the vicinity of the storm right now.
Well, basically anywhere in signal 3 could get typhoon gusts.
Yes.
And some places sustained.
There's also been a question. What's the forecast on peak intensity? Is it 100 knots?
For
What's
this
your
storm,
forecast?
well, Ike
Yeah.
put out a forecast earlier going with 90 miles per hour. I don't know whether you think differently at this point, Ike.
Give or take.
Who's there somewhere. Personally, I'd probably go 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour sustained, when it's in the South China Sea. We also got a question here: can Zeta become a Category 3 or 2 and hit where Sally hit?
The odds of it becoming a Cat 2 plus are actually pretty decent.
No.
I'd say heading into
Not
the
good
Philippines.
news.
Uh,
No,
I
we're
just
talking
said
about
Philippines.
Zeta.
I meant the Yucatan. I was talking about Zeta. I just completely got things mixed up.
Oh no.
But yeah, the reality is, if you're in the Yucatan, I'd be preparing for a Category 1 or 2. I think the odds of a Category 3 are fairly low. Ships gave it 1 in 3 chance yesterday. I'd say the odds are probably lower than that as of this morning. But I'd say the odds of a Category 2 are decent. I'd give it 30 to 40%. And I'd say that the odds that the United States gets a Category 2 plus at this point, pretty low, less than 10%. I'd go with even less than 30% for a hurricane landfall at this point in the U.S. I think a tropical storm landfall is by far the most likely solution from this for the United States.
Will there be a possibility that Malawi will go northwestward and hit Batangas? Well, it doesn't have to go far. It doesn't even have to go northwest to get there. It's just a very slight deviation. That could happen easily. As it is, coastal regions there in the south could get typhoon conditions.
Yeah. Okay, there is another question actually. Could it hit Aceh province? We're talking about Quinta here. And as of the update, actually the Capiz is really, Aklan is really far from the bulk of the storm, but Aklan is actually on signal number 1 right now, so may experience winds, more or less.
All right. Any other thoughts from our team just now?
This
Rainfall.
season,
What was
Currently
that?
experiencing light winds to very strong gusty winds.
That's at your place, yeah?
Yeah,
How about the rain rate at your place at the moment?
about like 5 to 11 millimeters.
Yeah, we can see the situation once again there. Persistent rainfall by the looks of things. Trees swaying every so often. Also, more questions here. How big is Malawi? As far as typhoons go, it's not huge. It's about average, really. But if we're going to measure it, I'll have to get my measuring tool out, which is going to take a moment. Okay, here we go. So, in terms of cloud coverage, clouds associated with the storm extend north to south about 800 miles, which is about 1,300 kilometers. The central core of the storm is about 230 miles wide. So that's something over 300 kilometers there. And the typhoon wind field is probably fairly small. Maybe something up to 60 or 70 kilometers from the center. But there we have it. More questions. Can Imogen from near Australia... Can Imogen form near Australia in a month or so? It certainly could. We don't
it's
know.
normal.
Oh my.
Normally, you should expect it.
Farhan's
me,
going
wait.
crazy by the sounds of things. Who was that?
I think that was Ike's.
Ah. In any
Oh, wait,
case.
it's you. Oh, wait, never mind.
To recap, as we're finishing up the broadcast at this point, Typhoon Molave moving through the central Philippines, or central North Philippines, through southern Luzon. A Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale with winds of 80 miles per hour, pressure around 978 millibars, 130 kilometers per hour sustained. In the Atlantic, we've got Tropical Storm Zeta, which has triggered hurricane watches for the coast of Mexico. And that storm is... could ramp up in its intensity. There's the imagery now. That's visible imagery this morning on Zeta, which has just arrived. And huge cloud tops on the southern side, by the way. That is another threat in a ridiculously crazy Atlantic hurricane season. You can stay up to date with our updates on our YouTube channel, Force 13 on YouTube, and our Philippines channel on Facebook. Search Force 13 Philippines, or type in F13PH for the Force 13 Philippines team. And each channel will both have updates on everything that's going on in the relevant areas in the world of tropics and beyond. That's it from us for now. We'll have another live event at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the US, or 8 a.m. in the Philippines tomorrow morning. That's it from us for now. Thanks to my team. My name is Nathan Foy, and we'll see you again soon. Good night.
Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.